If you're watching this video, you know that this video is about me. So, as I'm creating this and I'm doing this, this is the first time in my life where I'm really being vulnerable, especially on social media. So, bear with me. I'm gonna try my best, and I hope you guys enjoy.
All right, so Johnny, tell me what is bringing you over here today.
I want to gain clarity on how I became who I am now.
Okay. So who are you now?
I'm someone who's constantly developing.
Where did this desire for growth come from?
So I was very anxious growing up, and I think that came also from my mom and my cousin. I've always felt like I was I didn't really have any self-identity, you know? So the moment I started to explore my passion, which is, I think just impacting people, the more I wanted to develop myself.
So you said that your anxiousness came from like your mom and your cousins.
Yeah.
Correct? So tell me about that. Tell me how.
Okay. So my mom growing up, she was always very scared of me doing anything, really, like anything that could be potentially dangerous. For example, if we were to go to the beach, she would not let me inside of the water. Not her fault. Like, I'm sure she was doing her best. But I think what she did was, in my own head, I developed low self-esteem.
How did kind of your mom wanting to protect you from like doing dangerous things develop into you having a sense of low self-esteem?
Because I always felt like a kid. Like, even growing up, I felt like I'm not confident making decisions on my own because I felt like I was always looked over like a kid. I think that's what that did. And it changed, it molded the perception of how I look at myself, you know? When you're constantly being told like, oh, you know, be careful, you can't do this, you can't do this. It kind of creates that image of yourself that you have in your head, which is inner confident, so.
When did this start for you? Like this feeling of not being confident?
I think when I started going to school, I started to socialize, see other people, and I think that's when it started.
So you said you started to socialize and see other people, and that's what started your lack of confidence.
Yeah.
Tell me about some of these people.
It was hard for me to connect with people. I think there were times where I was pretty delusional, or at the very least, I felt like I had a really strong connection with somebody, but in reality, they felt another way. There were friends where there were people that I would get attached to. There were multiple instances where I've heard them talk to other people like, yeah, I don't really like him, he's annoying, this, that, and the third. Like as if I was an annoying presence, and that's not how I perceived it. I think that's the first thing. And then the second thing also, in middle school, there was actually this one moment I remember. I was sitting in a classroom, and there were like 2-3 different people in different directions. So someone on the left, someone on the right, there's someone behind me. And they were just all throwing pens at me. Like they literally were just throwing things at me, and I don't necessarily remember why. And I think it has to do with the fact that I guess I was like the smartest in the room. Like I always try my hardest in doing the work. I would always try to answer the questions. And so they probably were just projecting on their own insecurities.
How did that feel at the time?
I felt like shit. I didn't like that feeling.
And now being the person that you are, how do you feel about that situation?
How do I feel about the situation now? I think that, alright, so those moments made me want to not feel like that ever again about myself, you know? So as I got into high school and I got out of that environment, like I never really confronted or I guess overcame in those moments. But as I gone through high school and college, I started to self-reflect on who who I was before and how I felt about myself before. And now looking back at it, it has to do a lot with why I struggle sometimes making decisions, why I struggle being assertive at times. And again, it just makes me want to grow as an individual. And yeah, I think like just feeling really good about who I am as a person and being very confident in my own skin is one thing I've been able to develop over time.
How did you develop that?
I think going through a lot of failures and not letting the failures determine who I am. So when I say that, and I think I'm still overcoming it too, you know, it's not something that's just like completely done. I mean, there's this one moment where I actually was going from school to my house, and I remember throwing rocks at a post. I have no idea why I was doing that. But then these two kids came from a fence, and they climbed the fence, came to me, and they were like, "Yo, did you just throw that rock at me?" And so in the moment, I'm like, "No, I didn't. Like, what are you talking about?" And you know, it's two of these guys, and it's like I'm scared, like so we're about to fight, or I'm about to just get beat up. And you know, they basically just said, "Okay, you better have not done that." They didn't really do anything physically to me. They didn't really assault me or anything. But I remember feeling like pretty shit about myself, right? In that moment as I was going home, because I didn't really stand up the way I wanted to. But here's the thing. I literally remember that same day, I think I put on some fighting scene. And I remember in my room, like boxing the air. So I'm over here like, yo, I'm a fighter. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And from that moment, that's when I got into martial arts. So that's when I started to, you know, I started to create this image of what I wanted to do. In high school, I took Muay Thai, and from there, I think that's like that moment in itself just, I think it inspired me to not be that scared little kid.
Talk more about having a moment that was like kind of fearful, but you turned it into something, like you let it inspire you as opposed to make you become fearful.
How did it inspire me?
How did you do that? How did you, instead of it being something that could have been a fear-inducing thing, and then you turned it into a fear, how did you decide to turn it into inspiration to become a fighter?
I have no idea. I have theories.
Tell me about
like
this.
I think,
because I'm sure there have been.
I think I was just sick and tired. I was sick and tired of just feeling like shit about who I am. So I think that was a decision I made in my mind. Like, you know what? I'm a fighter.
Would you say that was a breaking point?
It was. I think it was a milestone. It was a step in the right direction. Yeah.
So that moment with the guys trying to fight you was your catalyst to become kind of who you've become today.
Yeah. And I think also, I think I had some type of authority figure that I looked up to. Like my dad at one point, I was actually in a soccer team when I was in middle school. And I remember, like, I was very terrible. This is another instance that happened to me. So I was very terrible. And it was like my second game, and I was really nervous. So me and my dad, you know, we drove out to the game. I'm at the game, and sure enough, I don't really do that well, right? So after the game is done, the coach, this is like the coach having a conversation with my dad, and I'm just like sitting down. And I remember, I don't know exactly what the coach said, but I remember the coach basically saying like he wants to kick me off the team. And so my dad in that moment, like, I just saw him defend me. Like, he was just like, "Are you serious? Like, what type of coach are you?" And he was just getting really like pissed off. And he was like, "You know what? I don't need to be on your team." And so the fact that my dad stood up for me, I think it made me want to stand up for myself too. And it's crazy because after that moment, same concept. So how I got really deep into martial arts, I got really deep into soccer at one moment. And I would literally look up on YouTube, and I would search up like all the soccer tricks, I would play in the middle of the night, like at 11, 12 a.m. I would literally dribble up and down the house. I would become very obsessive on the things that I wanted to be good at. Now, I don't know if that stems from like a good thing or a bad thing, but at the very least, like I just put my mind to, I'm not this loser. Then I think 3-4 months later, after I've been practicing for like soccer obsessively, I remember going to a soccer field with a couple of the people that were on the team. And then they saw me play and they were like, yo, you got way better. Like, what the hell have you been doing? And I think that's what I really wanted. Like, I wanted to, again, get that validation.
So how is it that you view validation from others now?
What I'm working on right now is, like, if someone tells me I'm not good at something, or if they want to validate me for something, their validation shouldn't matter and I shouldn't seek it. I should be the one, my opinion is the only one that matters. So I think that's something that I'm working on as a programming.
How is it that you have kind of learned to disprogram yourself from what you thought before?
What I thought about like other people's validation? Awareness. Like if someone else, like I know if I'm just going off of what other people think of me, then I'm never gonna have my own identity of me. So I think that's what it is, like me wanting to just have my own identity. Like I want to be who I want to be, and no one else's opinion should matter.
What does failing mean to you?
Well, failing now just means that I would identify the failures as like I made a mistake. I would let that represent who I am, you know? So me becoming aware of I am not my failures, and failures are good. Failures is how I learn. Failures is how I grow as a person. Now it's still a conscious effort. Whenever I do fail or hit a wall or have a problem, I should get excited because I know that there's growth on the other side.
Can you tell me about a failure that you experienced that led you to ultimately grow?
I think one of the failures that has led me to grow is when I decided to join the fitness industry. So before I got into the fitness industry, I was in network marketing. What had happened was I had built an organization of 80 plus people. And at the time I was very focused on getting to the top, being one of the top leaders in the company. But it all came crashing down. So the whole organization, long story short, basically fell. And so now I had to wonder and question like, okay, what do I do now? And I think that's when I really started to step into the things that I enjoyed, because the network marketing made me realize like I love personal development, I love improving myself, and I love helping others improve themselves. So the network marketing experience was great. But yeah, I think I now started to cater toward what aligns best for me. But me losing my whole organization has, first I started to question, okay, who am I? What do I do now? And that ultimately led to me going into the fitness industry, and now I have a bigger vision with it. So
would you consider that a failure?
Well, now the way I perceive failure is a learning moment. So yes.
Will you tell me about another?
Okay, I'll tell you about another. The only thing I can think in my head right now is when I had a car crash. So there was a period, so there was a period of time like where I would travel from to different states to do events, to network with some of the people in my organization. And so I had drove 8 hours to Virginia, stood there for a week, we masterminded for the week, and as I was coming back, there was 4 people in the car. So it was my girlfriend, it was 2 other people. There was 2 other people in the business. What happened was 2 hours into the drive, I actually fell asleep.
Oh, God, wow. Oh, I was asleep. What?
So I was, and everybody else was asleep at the time too. So I fell asleep on the wheel, and the car starts to go to the right. And this is like in the middle of nowhere. So just imagine a little like, I don't know how to explain it, but the road basically goes down and there's just a lot of land on this side. Okay, so the car is now tilted in one direction, and I hear the dirt on this one side. So now the car is going like this, so I wake up and I'm like, oh, what happened? So I turn the wheel really quickly, and the car flips 6-7 times, probably more than that. And in that moment, it was the most surreal moment of my life, because I literally did not know if I was gonna live or not. And so boom, 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 boom. The car lands upside down. One of the girls that was in the car, we had to call a helicopter. She had to go to the hospital to get surgery. And the other three, we went on the ambulance. So the reason why I think that was a failure is because I think what I was doing, I think I manifested that moment, because there was a lot of negativity and just like a lot of negativity. I was vibrating a lot of bad feelings before this happened. I was having problems with the girl that actually went to the hospital. Like, we weren't able to agree on certain things, so it was trouble for me to lead her. Also, the business wasn't doing so good. So I think I manifested that moment, and then after that moment happened, I ultimately just got very like sad. I got really sad. I started thinking like, yo, now my parents are, the insurance went up really crazy. We owe this amount for all the logistics of the hospital, and I started beating myself up about it. You know, I started really blaming myself for the fact that I crashed the car.
Tell me about why you feel shame about that specific situation.
I feel like I could have gone about it a lot better. I feel bad about the situation because it's like the fact that someone had to go to the hospital on a silly mistake of going to sleep. That goes back to my childhood, that anything that was a responsibility of mine and didn't go well, I would be criticized and shamed for it. So I think that's like, I immediately right after the situation, like I felt so terrible about myself, like about what I did.
I want to know how much further you want me to go with this.
Go further.
Do you want to go further?
I'm ready.
If we're on shame, have you ever had a moment in your life where you felt shame but overcame it?
So this one time I actually got on the phone with the girl, and I remember just crying out in tears and telling her like sincerely, like, yo, I really hate the way that I went about things. I feel like I could have spoke to you more, and I'm sincerely sorry. That's like a lot of curses, just like crying on the phone. But after that, I can't remember, I don't vividly remember just me talking to myself and having some sense of clarity on what I was doing. I think unconsciously I told myself, like, you know, I am not this failure. I was shaming myself so badly, but I'm like, it's okay. Like, I made a mistake. Yes, you know, I slept on the road. It happens. It doesn't determine who I am, and so, you know, eventually I stopped being in a hump, and I started, you know, I forgave myself for what I did.
So if you forgave yourself, why do you still carry shame?
I think because I still haven't spoken to the parents.
How would speaking to them absolve your shame?
I think the perception I have of myself, and I guess the way that they perceive me, like, I'm sure that they know that I made a mistake, but there's probably a lot of resentment or anger towards what I did. And you know, and they can be angry, that's fine, but I still need to act on my best behalf and show myself that I'm not that person. You know, I'm not this person that's going to have your daughter go to the hospital and me not show up. So
it's interesting. So you kind of changed as you were speaking, but I don't know if you've noticed that you said you needed to speak to them to absolve your guilt because Well, what I'm seeing is that it actually was you still looking for validation
Yeah.
from someone else.
Yeah,
And I think
I noticed it.
I think I noticed you noticed that as well. And then you flipped and started to say that internally. So,
Yeah, like I said, it's a conscious thing that I'm changing for sure.
yeah. I mean, it's good that you're aware.
Yeah.
Tell me more about how you identify yourself, the person that you are becoming and the person that you want to be. What are the qualities of this person?
I'm so glad you said that. Yeah. So I'm actually working on my self-image, which is the way I perceive myself. And I'm working on actively acting like that person. The qualities is someone that can walk, talk, and act very confidently. And when I say confidently, I think confidence comes from people who can be vulnerable to themselves and not let that deteriorate how they perceive themselves, right? So if you, I guess, make a mistake, for me, my whole childhood, I would always shame myself, and still, and I'm consciously working on that. So, yeah, so a person that can be vulnerable to themselves, a person that can, I think, also have an exceptional attitude. So no matter the circumstances, no matter the things that's happening in my life, I don't let the circumstances control me. I don't let that control my emotions. I control me. A person that smiles to everyone and treats everyone else like the most important person in the world. I think a lot of, like, the more I can treat someone else like the most important person in the world, the more people are gonna be inclined to do that back to me. And from there, I think it's just someone who just follows and pursues their dreams. I want to change everyone's life. I want to change the way that they think because I grew up with my parents, my family always working so hard, and them not knowing, like, yo, is this the definition of life? Like, am I just gonna have to work just to pay my bills and just to meet end? You know, like, that never stuck with me. Like, I never wanted to have a life where it's just like you're enslaved. You're not really doing with what you really want. So I want to be the person that does it, and I want to inspire others to do it too.
You mentioned this, doing what did you say, working towards your dream, or
Dreams. Yeah.
What do you dream?
So I'm actually working on my brand. I want to have a company that runs all over the world, and we focus on 3 pillars: personal development, fitness, and wealth. So my vision is to have other people collaborating with in the company, like other like-minded individuals, and we're all educating people, bringing awareness to people on how they can go from living a life that they don't want to live to the life that they want to live.
Amazing.
Yeah, sometimes we're locked up in a prison and we don't even know it.